tied up with myth, legend, and wonderful stories. And Treasure Island is the best of them, but there's Coral Island, and there's Peter Pan, and then there's the movies.
Pirates have swung across our screen since the early days of cinema.
Over the side, men! Borders away!
These romantic images of pirates may seem to be the creation of Hollywood, but many are actually based on historical fact, not folktale. History verifies that high drama on the high seas did happen in the age of Bellamy and Blackbeard. But the buccaneering heroes of the silver screen are certainly pirates at their most glamorous. In reality, most pirates were not handsome highwaymen of the sea, but badly fed, disease-ridden desperados.
We've all bought into a kind of myth of the pirate. They were very colourful, very swashbuckling, very much romantic figures in a way. But you have to balance that with the realization that they were also quite monstrous. The men themselves, the captains and their crew, were brutal, greedy, and very much without conscience.
And the fictional pirates of literature are also grounded in fact. Characters like Treasure Island's peg-legged Long John Silver and Peter Pan's Captain Hook with his fearsome metal claw may appear to be simply the stuff of storybooks, but real pirates did have primitive prosthetics like wooden legs and hooks for hands. Losing limbs in battle was a hazard of the job.
I've come across many accounts of pirates, of one-legged pirates, and there are many one-legged sailors, and they did have a sort of wooden peg, as it were, or wooden leg. The pirates had a very ingenious medical insurance scheme, which was designed really to protect them in battle, so that if they lost a limb, they got some recompense for it.
If you lost a finger, you got paid a ducat. If you lost a leg, you got paid more. If you lost an arm, you got paid more. In a grisly sort of way, even if you got wounded, you were still going to get paid. They knew what they were doing, you know, they took the risk. Many of them came back minus limbs, eyes, bits of themselves, but they also came back rich.
Black Sam and his crew of nautical gangsters were certainly taking this all-or-nothing approach. By the summer of 1716, he was prowling through the Caribbean, preying mercilessly on the merchant vessels unlucky enough to cross his bows.
Black Sam's career as a pilot seems to have been quite meteoric. Captains like Bellamy very often may have only been active for 1 or 2 years. So Bellamy's success rate is quite high because in the space of just over a year, he's supposed to have captured as much as 50 ships.
Some of his more notable captures were the Tanner frigate off the coast of Haiti and the St. Marie off the coast of Cuba. In those days, there weren't checking accounts or internet cash transfers. Everybody carried cash, and so every vessel captured added to their hoard of treasure.
For the pirates, gold was the ultimate and only goal. They fought for it hard. But like everything else on board the pirate ship, it also represented another kind of equality, an economic one.
They would simply set it all out and then gather round and it would be equally divided. Each of the ordinary members would get the same amount, and this would be divided up, gold, jewels, whatever it was, and everyone was supposedly given equal shares of the treasure, although captains got 2 shares.
The pirates were in the business to make a fast buck, but gold was only part of what they were after. Just like a modern-day car dealer, the pirates liked to trade up their ships.
The aim of all the successful pirate captains was to capture an ever larger ship. So each time you captured a really decent merchant ship with a lot of guns, you moved into that ship.
Black Sam's career as a professional pirate was rocketing. He was captain of his own ship, the Sultana, and a loyal but lawless pirate crew. Now he was ready to go after a very big prize. After months of preparation, the Whydah was ready to set sail. She was packed with a cargo of trade goods and boasted a brand new bell. In 1716, she left from London bound for the west coast of Africa on the first leg of her triangular journey. It was her second voyage around the trade triangle, and she was captained by veteran slave trader Lawrence Prince. He purchased approximately 500 slaves to fill the Whydah's hold. Then, having signed for his captive human cargo, Prince set sail from Africa across the Atlantic on the notorious Middle Passage.
It was hellish. It was horrific. These were people who were crammed into the belly or the hull of a ship.
You're shackled. Generally, women and children were separated from the men.
They were stacked like books on a shelf. They were stacked methodically. They would pack the slaves in one after another in a usually a 3-foot-high area, shackled and chained by their wrists and their hands, and in some cases even their necks.
The 5,000-mile journey from Africa to the colonies of the Caribbean and America could take as long as 3 months.
So they're lying in their own excrement. They are subject to tremendous diseases. These are journeys of torture.
Slave ships like the Whydah were built for speed. She was capable of 13 knots. It was a sinister necessity. The faster the crossing, the better the chance that the captive human cargo would arrive alive. The Whydah and her captain, Lawrence Prince, had already made one trip around the trade triangle. Now, in late winter of 1717, they arrived again in the Caribbean and unloaded a cargo of captive Africans to be sold into slavery for the colonies.
Men were more highly valued, younger men who could work hard. Women were, generally speaking, less highly valued than men, and children were not valued at all.
The Whydah's slaves were sold to the highest bidder for lucrative payments made in gold and silver. Now, crammed with this booty, she was a floating treasure chest just waiting to be plundered. In March 1717, Captain Lawrence Prince was ready to undertake the final leg of his journey. He prepared to leave the Caribbean for England, unaware of the threat that lay in wait. On board his ship, Black Sam had been sharpening his pirate skills for over a year. Now, with the conquest of more than 50 merchant ships under his belt, he was ready for a bigger gamble, and taking the Whydah would be hitting the jackpot. Like many pirate captains of the Golden Age, Bellamy had a whole underground network of spies and smugglers informing him of potential targets.
He may well have been tracking her. We do know that the pirates maintained a fairly good intelligence system in the Caribbean.
Then Bellamy gets the tip-off he has been waiting for. The Whydah has set sail. It's now or never. The pirate captain begins his pursuit. For 2 days, he tracks the mighty ship, pursuing her as far as the Bahamas. Pirate captains like Bellamy had a well-rehearsed plan of attack, which they performed with military precision.
They would spot a merchant ship on the horizon. They would follow it for often quite a time, sometimes for 2 or 3 days, working out how many men there were on board, whether they were armed, whether they looked like a disciplined crew, checking out that it wasn't a naval ship in disguise.
This pirate vessel has been shadowing you for days, and you are already in a state of terror, and suddenly it's coming right up next to you.
And then at the very last moment, they would fire a shot across the bows, classical stuff, pull down the friendly flag, put up the Jolly Roger, and then make a fantastic noise. They would throw hand grenades.
Grappling irons being thrown across from one ship to the other. the two ships grinding together. And then these wild, highly colorful, very savage-looking men pouring over from their ship to yours. Guns in their hands, cutlasses waving, shouting, screaming, firing shot into the air.
It was deliberately designed to terrify the crew of the merchant vessel, and if you were a humble merchant sailor just out from Bristol, you know, it was a very scary sight.
Lawrence Prince and the crew of the Whydah are under no illusions about the threat that Bellamy and his pirates pose.
Certainly he kept close, but not too close, before moving in for the kill. There's a great story which says that he asked the devil to help him to overcome the ship without harming it in any way.
As he closes on the Whydah, Bellamy hoists the deathly black flag. It is the beginning of the end for the Whydah's days as a slave ship.
Bellamy didn't fly an individual flag of his own devising, but he did make use of the famous black flag, also known as the Jolly Roger, that was flown as a sign of imminent attack.
The name Jolly Roger covers any of the flags that pirates would fly. The name is thought to come from the French, Joli Rouge, or lovely red, because the very early buccaneers flew red flags. The most famous Jolly Roger today is the skull and crossbones, representing imminent death. But in fact, it was much more common for pirates to fly simple black flags. Some famous pirates designed their own individual flags. Thomas Tew's flag showed a strong arm and cutlass. Blackbeard's frightening flag showed a skeleton and bleeding heart. The pirate captains were devious. They would approach their victims flying a friendly flag in order to get close enough to attack. At the very last moment, they would hoist the Jolly Roger with one simple aim: to terrorize the other ship into complete capitulation.
People would just lower their flags and give up and surrender when you saw a skull and crossbones coming over the horizon. So I think most people very sensibly just said, right, here comes the pirates, give up, boys.
As Bellamy prepares to attack, Lawrence Prince offers no resistance. Frightened for his life, he surrenders.
Prince fired a single cannon shot so he could say he did. That's all there was to it.
The pirates swarm aboard. Bellamy captures the Whydah without firing a single shot. He abandons his old ship and moves lock, stock, and barrel onto the Whydah, taking with him the loot he has plundered from all his previous conquests. In keeping with his magnanimous image, Bellamy gives Prince his old ship, the Sultana, and allows him and his crew to leave unharmed. And it's only when Bellamy goes below decks that he discovers what the Whydah was carrying in her holds.
She was carrying an enormous load of treasure, probably as much as $60,000, $70,000 in the time, but by today's currency that would work out in millions, so you're probably looking at something between $6 and $8 million in today's currency.
It's one of the biggest pirate heists in history. Research suggests that the Whydah may have been carrying up to 4.5 tons of treasure. Sam Bellamy and his crew hide this enormous booty between decks in the ship's hold. New, fast, and well-armed, the Whydah is the ultimate pirate flagship. For Black Sam, she is the perfect instrument for a reign of terror that is just about to begin.
Bellamy takes over the ship. It's great. It's the beginning of a real, very successful run of attacks on other shipping from that point on.
By 1985, Barry Clifford and his team have been searching for the Whydah for 6 long years. Despite hours of research and thousands of dives, the ship continues to elude them. Finally, his perseverance pays off.
Just when it seemed like we couldn't go on anymore, we went out one morning and sky sort of blackened. It was almost surreal. And we dug a pit, came up and found a big, heavy, round object. You didn't know what it was. It was just very heavy and sort of all encrusted. It was like a big piece of rust. And we brought it up, and there was a bell protruding from one side of it. We brought the bell to our laboratory, and our conservators started working on it. A couple of days later, one of the conservators called me up and said, "You better get down to the lab." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "We just found a W on the bell."
When revealed, the full inscription read, "The Whydah Galley, 1716." Clifford had the cast iron proof that he needed. After years of searching, the Whydah was his. Finding the bell was the proof positive Clifford and his team needed to authenticate the wreck as the pirate ship Whydah, the first known pirate ship in the world. For the pirates who sailed her, the bell was the heart and soul of the ship. It told them when to work and when to sleep, called them to battle stations, and measured time. For Clifford, locating the bell enabled him to begin mapping the site.
This is a chart that shows where we've been recovering material. It's an archaeological grid. And the ship came in and the wind was driving it from this direction. The shoreline is over here. This is about 1,500 feet from shore to this spot.
The Whydah wreck covers an area of seabed measuring over 40,000 square feet. Her artifacts are scattered across this area in what is known as a discontinuous archaeological site. As each individual artifact is recovered, its position on the site is accurately logged. This enables Clifford to understand the layout of the Whydah wreck.
We found the anchor here, the bell we found here, and a lot of other material that you would associate with the bow of the ship we found in this section.
The bell and the anchor confirmed to Clifford and his team that they were excavating the Whydah's bows, her front end.
The anchor is what held the vessel in place. I mean, boom, you find an anchor, it's there. You find a bell, you know you have a boat. Every part tells its tale. Every artifact has its own unique part in the whole picture. So yes, is this a significant find? Absolutely.
The Whydah is the first authenticated pirate shipwreck in the world. She is packed full of preserved relics or artifacts. For the next 23 years, Clifford and his team worked to recover these precious treasures.
With the Whydah project, we actually have the opportunity to see how pirates really lived and died. We can almost, not quite, but almost connect with them through the objects they once handled.
The Whydah's artifacts, the belongings of her long-dead pirate crew, offer a unique insight into the golden age of piracy, nearly 300 years ago. But the Whydah was carrying something else when she sank, something much more valuable, a secret hoard of gold and silver stored deep within her hold. It is estimated that this treasure amounts to as much as 4.5 tons. Even after 23 years of excavating the Whydah wreck site, it has never been found. But now Clifford hopes he knows where it is, buried deep in the sand beneath the Whydah's sunken cannons.
Here's Cape Cod. Here's our boat right now anchored in Provincetown Harbor. We leave Provincetown Harbor, follow this track, and 25 miles on the outside of the Cape, right in the middle of the graveyard, is where the Whydah is buried in the sand.
We're going to start bringing up the tops of the cannons, and there are big rolls of lead as well.
Spare cannons and lead were used as ballast. Ballast was heavy material stored at the bottom of a ship to stop it from being top-heavy. Barry Clifford is optimistic that beneath the lead and the cannons lie the Whydah's buried treasures.
There's probably an area about as big as this room that's just packed
with coins and treasure and artifacts and riches.
Good. That's a flat.
This year, Clifford intends to lift the cannons and rolls of lead he has found to see if he can uncover these artifacts and treasures that he thinks are hidden beneath. But will that be the end of his quest? Or will the wreck continue to reveal the secrets of the past?
There's going to be discoveries that go on forever, I think, in completely understanding what we have. I mean, these touchstones to this secretive, democratic, outlaw subculture. But who were these people?
Artifacts from the Whydah are recovered and cataloged by conservator Scott Herber and principal investigator John DeBry.
This is our conservation lab. Everything that comes out of the ocean floor that is brought up to the surface is brought here. This is where we really start doing our work. We really do archaeology here. We analyze everything, we study everything.
The artifacts recovered are the vital connection between past and present, providing a tantalizing glimpse into the lives of real pirates 300 years ago. DeBry has carefully restored this pistol to its former glory.
From primary source documents, as well as references, we know that this particular pistol was made in London. It is an exquisite piece. It has absolutely beautiful detail. A plate, like you have a sight plate here with a dragon. And on the butt plate, we have what we believe is a representation of a Sun King.
In this instance, the Sun King represents William III. So in our British artwork and craftsmanship of the period, William III is likewise frequently depicted as a Sun King.
You have a lot of decorations on this particular plate as well. You have some mythical dragons there on either side. This piece most likely was taken as a prize by a pirate on another ship, and I can tell you that the owner of this particular piece, the original owner, must have cried a long time when he lost this piece. This was a very, very expensive pistol in those days.
The pistol didn't look like this when it was first retrieved from the sea floor. It's had 3 years of careful restoration. When artifacts are recovered from the Whydah, they are encrusted with a mineralized sediment called concretion. After being submerged in salt water for 300 years, metal objects undergo a chemical reaction. Metallic elements bleed from the object and bond with minerals like chalk found in the sea, and the object becomes encrusted. Removing this concretion is a slow and delicate process.
You see something like this, you come to a museum, you see it, you're like, wow, that looks beautiful. Well, it came off the bottom like this. It was covered in concretion. And as the concretion was slowly worked back, parts of it start to reveal itself. And once we saw what was revealed, then you slowly work around it. We're halfway through the process, at least deconcreting it, you get to here. You can see, in comparison, how relatively similar they are, but it takes a long, long time to go from here to here. This artifact, the way it's sitting right now, I would estimate probably there's a good year of work still in it. We're going to use air scribes, which are these small air-driven tools, which will remove the concretions. So it's going to be very delicate hand tooling.
The pistol was the weapon of choice for any self-respecting pirate.
Most pirates went into battle armed to the teeth, there's no doubt about that, and a pirate captain would be super armed to the teeth. Your ordinary seaman would just have his cutlass and a knife, perhaps, but the pirate captain would have his pistols as well.
The weapon itself had an effective range of less than 100 yards, but pirate still favored pistols for their boarding operations. They were much less cumbersome than a musket, and they sufficed for putting down your opponent.
Hopefully you would fire a shot, which would be a simple lead ball usually, and when that went wrong or you've used up all your ammunition, you'd simply turn it round and it had a big heavy handle, as it were, on the far end, and you would use that as a club, so you could either throw it or hit somebody over the head with it.
Pirate history is as colorful as the pirates themselves. The artifacts and objects help to separate the facts from the fiction. Careful restoration work has exploded some of the more embroidered myths.
Archaeology can clear up a lot of misconceptions about pirates. And through painstaking conservation work, we've been able to recover and conserve silk ribbon. And in this case, for example, you're able to see that the ribbon is a nice alternating roses and thistles pattern.
Elegant silk ribbon seemed an unlikely find from a pirate shipwreck, but it turns out to have had a practical purpose.
We've all seen pictures of pirates with pistols stuck in their belt. You know, that's almost a pirate's trademark. Yet that's not how they carried them. What the pirates would actually do in real life, they would take a piece of silk ribbon and they'd attach a pistol to each end, and they'd carry these silk slings over the back of their neck in pairs. And it kept your hands free so that you could swing a sword or board another vessel readily.
But the pistol was just one element in a pirate's personal armory.
The standard weapon for a pirate, as for any seaman, was a cutlass, which was a bit like a machete. It was a short sword, sharpened on one side, about that long, and the point about a cutlass was it was much easier to use on a ship where you've got ropes and rigging all around than a long sword, and so it's complete nonsense, all that Errol Flynn stuff of these elegant duels going on. You just get tangled up with the rigging.
Summer 1717. After only a year on the high seas, Black Sam is now truly the prince of pirates. He has been captain of the Whydah for a matter of weeks, and already she has become one of the most formidable pirate ships in the Caribbean. Bellamy is a charismatic and successful captain. He goes on a rampage, plundering several merchant ships, a frigate, a whaling vessel, and even a Snow, one of the largest sailing ships of the period. Soon his list of conquests tops 50. Bellamy is unstoppable.
The Whydah was a great stroke of luck for Bellamy, which he converted into the perfect pirate ship. I think he fitted it out for 26 or 28 guns, which made it a good enough ship to take on just about anyone apart from a big naval warship.
By the time she sank, the Whydah was a gunship of considerable firepower. John DeBry has restored some of these awesome weapons which Barry's excavations of the wreck site have revealed.
We thought originally that the ship